Thank you for joining us. You are watching Inside Out. I am Yvonne Mukondani. Now, this is a weekly ZBC News and Current Affairs to Zimbabwe on the 12th of August, right? Yes. They are coming here and they're built to perform, but there have been a lot of issues, a lot of controversy surrounding their performance and their coming to Zimbabwe. Now, this has resulted in a number of artists pulling out. We're talking about Anatolia, Tekshua Zama, Tembalami, who else?
The Unveiled.
And the Unveiled. Yes. So people have just been asking themselves, like, what is going on? Like, why are people pulling out? What are the reasons? They said they pulled out due to unforeseen circumstances. Which circumstances we want to talk about today, because we do have one of the artists who pulled out, who is Tembalami, and we also have Dr. Caleb from Bulawayo. But let me ask them to introduce themselves, gentlemen. Starting with you, Tim.
Hi, everybody.
How are you?
doing? I'm so excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Yvonne.
It's great to have you with us.
My name is Dr. Caleb. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Now, I'll start with you, Tembalami. We're talking about the Maverick City Tour, right? Yes. And you're one of the artists who were built to perform, but you pulled out. So we want to understand, maybe because we have you, we want to understand why you pulled out, and we can also maybe get to understand why the other artists got to say, no, we're not going to be a part of this.
I think every artist has their own reason, and I won't be able to speak to their reasons for doing that. But on my part, it was more contractual than it was like all those conspiracies. So a lot of people just jumped to conclusions, just jumped on the bandwagon. They're like, thank you so much, Tembalami. You cannot be part of this evil platform and all of these things. And I also had to go back and clarify because it was contractual. I also didn't want to out people and go into the details of the nature of the contract that I had.
Which I was about to ask.
Yes. I will go into a bit of detail so that you get a bit of understanding. So my pulling out was as a result of that contractual agreement. It had nothing to do with the BET Awards and all these things that came out.
So your pulling out was nothing spiritual. It had nothing to do with some of the reasons that we're seeing being flown around on social media. It was merely contractual.
Yes.
All right. Dr. Caleb, I've seen you on social media, particularly TikTok, with your content. And recently you were talking about this whole Maverick City thing and giving your thoughts. What are your thoughts on some of the artists pulling out, citing some spiritual reasons? We don't want to be yoked with the devil. We don't want to be linked with them because of such performances, the stage that was set at the BET when such and such performed. What are your views on that?
Okay, first of all, I want to start by saying that we didn't really know the reasons as to why many of these artists pulled out. So when I took to social media, I was not talking exactly about the BET Awards per se as the reason as to why they pulled out, because we could only speculate, since we didn't have evidence as to why they would have pulled out. But you know how we are as Zimbabweans.
Exactly.
We always try to put two and two together, but sometimes we end up going overboard. The story turned from being just like he's mentioning that he pulled out because of contract issues. But what we think was the reason was the BET Awards. And
what is it about the BET Awards? Maybe we're just saying the BET Awards and somebody at home doesn't even know what happened, what necessitated this whole scandal that we have now. What happened at the BET Awards?
Chandler Moore had a live performance with Will Smith. And Will Smith was right in the middle of a ring of fire. And there was a red background behind him. So just looking at the picture, people just assumed everything was Illuminati.
And why do you think as Christians we would associate a ring of fire with Illuminati? Because, don't we know the Lord as a consuming fire? Don't we have instances in the Bible where the fire is used maybe to resemble the Lord himself? So why would Christians, in your view, associate that with Illuminati?
The problem with the internet now is no matter how weird you are, you find your community of weirdos. That's the problem. So before the internet, this whole Illuminati was not a thing. It became a thing because there were people that are convinced of a lot of conspiracy theories. We saw it through COVID. Even if a doctor told him that you need to take this, they would say, no, I'm going to take dog medicine because that's what I saw on the internet.
Yeah.
So the internet has power, and it's a tool that can be used both for evil and good. The problem with the internet now is it's run by algorithms. If I come with a fancy, crazy conspiracy and people catch on to it, and I get a lot of income from YouTube doing it, because all those millions of views that people get when you oust Tembalami and say, Tembalami is evil, look at the Gorerino video.
Exactly, yeah.
There was a girl who was dancing like this and made these signs, they're Illuminati. If you go into the Satanic Bible, you see this. But Tembalami didn't read the Satanic Bible. The video creator creates 10 videos a month. He edits till 2 a.m. They have no time to look at Illuminati Bibles and look at all those signs. Who's got that time? He's a doctor. He doesn't have that time. He creates content when he finds time. So if you go into his content, a Japanese can come and say, I saw something that you put in Shintoism. It means this. How is he supposed to know?
Because it doesn't apply to him.
It doesn't apply to him. So sometimes we create these things and say there was a ring of fire. So the stage creator should have been an Illuminati who went and created a ring of fire. I don't think the devil wants to come to you in a ring of fire on a BT Awards. I think if he's doing that, he's weak and stupid. The devil comes in ways, everyday ways. He can come through even my wife. He can come through my mother. He is cunning like that. If you look at the book of Job, the devil takes away things from him, and then the wife comes and says, curse God so that you might be served. So sometimes we want the devil to be Hollywood, yet we interact with things that pull us away from God every day. These signs and wonders and hidden things and color reds, and yes, maybe. But for me, I don't think it's a very good strategy if that's what the devil is doing. And if the devil could go into war with the Lord and live with a third of heaven, if all he's doing is putting a ring of fire and let Will Smith sing in the center, I think he's a dumb devil.
What do you think necessitated this whole thing, starting just from a ring of fire, like we're trying to figure out, in your view? Why would I just wake up and go, moto and when up a stage in my beat? You should have just come.
I think it's perspective, and also I understand also from the point of view of the population. Kuti, looking at the background, Will Smith, he's professed that he's not necessarily Christian. I think he's into Christian Science and all these other things. All right, and also just considering the broad perspective on social media about Kirk Franklin, especially. People think that he's lost his way. People think that Maverick City has also lost its way. But then again, when you really, really look at the matter, you realize that it's not the whole choir that has lost its way. It's probably maybe one or two people with out of order social media posts.
Who have lost their way. Is it a problem? Is it not our duty to bring them back to the Lord as Christians?
It definitely is. It definitely is. Because one point that I was trying to bring across is that if there is room for repentance, then there's a need for us to pray for them. Because if we look at the scope of their influence, if we look at what they have actually done for the kingdom of God, if they have lost their way, that means these are people we need to be praying for, because we have a lot more to do. Unfortunately, those who criticize or judge them harshly are the ones who are not doing anything in the kingdom. So you'll find that their judgment is very conclusive and very harsh. They'll tell you, hey, leave these people alone. But I have a heart of a pastor, so I can't do that, because I'm thinking kingdom. I'm thinking how best can we reach out, especially to the young community. These are people that have done a lot of work in just sharing the gospel through music, especially to the youths and all of that. And we resonate a lot with their music, right? So yes, we may not necessarily agree with their lifestyle, but if we don't agree and we are truly Christian, the response must not be criticism and judgment, but prayer. If we are to judge, we are judging so that we know how to pray accordingly. So yeah, that's
And
my
there's a
stance
verse
so
that,
far.
that we like so much as Christians, judge not, that ye be not judged. I may not tell you in the right context here or not, but let me just throw it there. You know, and now many people, especially, I'll continue referring to social media because nobody could
Yes.
you know, and many people on social media saying gospel musicians should not judge. So where do you, as a believer, you know, or myself as a believer, where should I able to draw the line if I were maybe a gospel artist? Inandikwanisi kucollaborate naningi because aite zvekwamwari kune zvinhu zvakadaro here kana uthetha kutojudge.
I think when it comes to collaborations, everything draws down to vision. If you see the apostles, Paul was called to the Gentiles. Peter and the other guys were called to the Jews. So who are you called to is the question. If there is no vision, then you can't run with it. So to begin with, a lot of people came and criticized me because I have a new song that I featured 2 secular artists.
Yes.
And they were saying you are being two-faced because you just refused to do
Even
the
I,
Maverick.
for one, I was shocked. I was like, but
This dude. So a lot of people do that, but they don't understand the background of my journey. I was a secular artist.
Okay.
So most of these guys that I'm working with, I know where they are. I know what they're experiencing. I know what they're going through. You have no idea because you have never been a secular artist in your life. You sit on your sidelines and you assume. Because when I was a secular artist, I was still a Christian. And every time, the day I stopped saying I have stopped doing secular music, everyone was like, Konga kurise kunyika. I was like, where's that?
Kunyika ndekupi.
Yeah, because we interact with a lot of things that are not of God. Because the car that you're driving, a Toyota, was done by Japanese who are not Christians. So what are you going to do? You are not going to drive a car because it was made by a non-believer? Because you can't say, hey, this is a very nice car. The pianos that we use in church, again, Japanese, some German, some. So everything that we interact with and everyone that we interact with, sometimes God even brings people that have different theology than you. Nehemiah had to go and rebuild Mashingo in Jerusalem. He was said, go and get timber from Tyre and Sidon and all these places where you go and get. And all these people that were giving him resources to build were not Christian or were not Jewish. They didn't have the same beliefs as him.
All right. Kwenye exhorted do not be unequally yoked with non-believers. Inozophinda papi when we're talking about things like this.
The first thing is, are they non-believers?
And how do you know if they're believers or non-believers?
How do I know that my pastor is a believer or not?
Spirit of discernment. How am I able to discern as a Christian, as a believer? Kuti izvi zvakamira pamberi pangu zvine kururama.
But also discernment comes with maturity.
Spiritual maturity.
Spiritual maturity. And there are also people that claim to have it, but they don't have it. There's also discernment that you need to discern the difference between an evil person and an immature person. There are people that are immature in the things of God. They do silly things and play around with things that they shouldn't play with. It's not that they're evil, but they just don't have the understanding of the things. So we should also be able to discern between an immature prophet and an evil prophet. Because someone might be a false prophet, someone might be just immature. They see these things, they don't know what to do with it.
Okay. So the issue of discernment, the issue of judging, and the conversation that we're having today.
Okay. So first, I'll start off with discernment. All right. It ties into judgment, really. If you are going to judge righteously, you must be spiritually sharp to discern, because the Bible tells us in Hebrews 5:14, as it speaks of discernment, that having exercised your senses to discern both good and evil. So if you find that you only discern evil, then that means there's something wrong with your discernment, because that will become your inclination for judgment. Yes, the Bible tells us that judgment must begin in the house of God. the Bible tells us that as Christians, there must be a level of judgment that must happen so that we remain on point. We hold each other accountable to the Word of God, not to somebody else's convictions.
Okay.
Right. So discernment starts off on the Word of God. That's the primary foundation of true godly discernment. You see. So it doesn't just take what we see. It takes what God says. Right. So what happens now with this matter that's been happening, it's people they have a bias based off of what they've heard on social media and not based off of the truth of what's going on. I love what Tembalami just pointed out about whether it's immaturity or evil. I was talking about the same thing in my previous video, that are you calling this guy satanic or carnal? Because there's a big difference between that. Right. Because somebody is satanic, that's a very big claim.
It is.
It's a very, very big claim for small things like that. Yes, I understand that they could be. I can't say there was. I'm not sure about that particular side. But then again, there's a certain immaturity, like you were saying, that comes sometimes with just being in the limelight. And if you look at the context of the American church and where they are right now, there are certain things that you can do there, which people will think is okay. But if you come and do it here, people will call you a false prophet. You know what I'm saying? I remember the one time when I was back in school, one of our mission teams had gone to Korea, and they found that I think it should have been the pastor's daughter going on stage to introduce the guests wearing a miniskirt. So in the African church, these are things that are unheard of. You cannot do that. They'll just assume good, Munui, they've lost their way. But culturally and contextually, it's fine. You know, you don't read too much into certain things. So I feel like maybe there might have been some sort of disconnect between their context and our understanding. So that's why it becomes very necessary for us to be very open-minded as we judge, so that we do not end up going in a direction that God is not. Yeah.
All right. And another question that people have had, and unfortunately, you know, you're the artist.
Yes.
You know, is, so are we saying that our gospel artists are not spiritually strong to be able to share stage with these people whom they claim to be satanic? Zvatinoti ari matiri mukuru kupfuura ari munyika, tazokundwa sei ari munyika kusvika papoint yekuti hatisi kukwanisa kuwadzana naye. Is this not maybe a point for them to worship God and bring these lost souls back?
It's in two ways. Like I said, it goes back to vision. It's everyone has a decision to make. Every church that you have gone to, there are churches that you have gone to and said, I don't want to be part of this. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
We never judged you to say, why did you leave Fear of God Ministries and now you're going to Power of Life? It's just examples. The reason why you could not fit into certain places is you felt it in your spirit that you don't want to be part of that. And I think we should be able to grant that to the musicians, to say, if you don't want to be part of this, it's okay.
Yeah.
If they saw that BET performance and they said, you know what, I don't want to be part of this, then there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah. It's a decision based on self, to say, do I want to do this? Because when God gave you that calling, it was you and God. It was not a conference call.
Okay.
So it's between you and God. You can say, God, with the ministry that you gave me, I don't think I want to be part of this. And make that decision for yourself.
Yeah.
Social media can come, and not everyone who questions you on social media understands everything. And because of that, it has to be a decision that you make with the counsel of those that you trust, to say, can I do this? What is God revealing to this? I'm feeling I don't want to do this. So some of the artists got counsel to say, I don't think this would be a good idea to move forward. But also that counsel may also be a bit biased, because some of our leaders are much older. They don't know YouTube algorithms. They don't know the personal lives of the people making videos claiming that God spoke to them. Because it's a bold claim to say God told me that Doc is an evil man. When I've never met him in my life, when I've never seen anything else besides a BET performance, that I don't know who made the stage and why they made it. I've just claimed. You'll find that it's some kid from somewhere in Philadelphia who just came and thought it was very creative.
Yeah.
And started pushing that narrative.
Yes.
Yeah. Our gospel artists, the question to say, are they not strong enough spiritually to be able to contain whatever spirits these other people will bring? And also, when we look at it and then we ask ourselves, was this a spiritual decision that they made? Like he's saying, it depends with the calling. Not to judge, but were they really called? Was it a spiritual decision to pull out, or was it an economic one? Okay, fine. A lot of Zimbabweans are saying, you know what, we don't want to be associated with that. What will people think of me? Music, so let me pull out.
That's another perspective. However, one thing that we should understand is that convictions are not principle, they're personal. Saga, if I personally believe Kuti being a part of this particular gathering might not work well for my brand or for my own convictions, or it will mess up my conscience, it's okay to pull out. Okay. I mean, no one should fault you for that, Saga, I do feel Kuti, maybe I can't say that their decision was spiritual or not, but perhaps now we know. First of all, it was a contract issue.
Which he said is going to explain for us, a little bit.
And for some, maybe it was a conscience issue, So we can only speculate at this point.
All right.
However, the point that you raised about one being spiritually powerful to supersede what the other is doing, I think understanding one other dimension, I guess, just to give a broader perspective. If, let's say, a Satanist decides to host a particular event, you are coming under their vision. So it's indirectly a submission to what they're working with. So if you believe they're Satanist, you don't want to submit to, to
also just by being in attendance, you're submitting.
It's a form. It's another form of submission. So just on account of that, people pull out. They're like, yeah, no. We don't want to.
So this means we're submitting to a lot of things that we don't understand, because, like you said earlier on, Kuti, the programs that we watch, the cars that we drive, the clothes that we wear, because my designers actually and what they believe in. Some even argue the hair that I'm wearing, So it's a tricky situation.
Saka, there comes another argument, of course, from Jesus' perspective. If you look in the Old Testament, people were not. It was unlawful to touch a person with leprosy. They would call you unclean. But then in the New Testament, when Jesus came, what was he doing? He was laying hands on people with leprosy, and they were receiving their healing. Saka, I do think perhaps sometimes in a little bit, in our immaturity, we run away from things that we're actually supposed to stay in and impact for the kingdom of God. But then again, it goes with maturity, it goes with conscience and convictions, because you can't then force someone to be a part of something because you want them to convert the other people. If your conscience is already seared, it'll become hard for you to even impact. You'll be the one who will end up drawn away, assuming with the narrative, the people are Satanists, which I don't believe.
Okay.
So yeah, there's all these perspectives.
All right, let's go back and get a little bit into the contractual issues that you can talk about, the reasons why you pulled out, the ones that you can, divulge.
No, the first thing is I was approached first to come and minister at the event, but because of my events that are coming and my travels, because I'm traveling to England the weekend before, and I was supposed to come back and perform. And some of my team is part of the team that's playing in England, and they have other commitments in England. They won't be able to come. So I said, I cannot be part of this with my team. because with the movements that are happening, I won't have a full team available. But what we can do, you can contract the Unveiled, and then I'll come and do Gorerino on the set of the Unveiled. So I wasn't contracted directly.
Okay.
So as soon as the Unveiled guys wanted to pull out, there was no contract left for me to perform. So my situation was contractual.
So had the Unveiled not pulled out, would you still be performing?
I would have been there to perform.
Okay.
But in that way, there was very little I could do in terms of me still pitching up, because I would need then to create a team and the logistics around for me to be able to fulfill. Because I also don't want to create a culture of pulling out of contracts that I would have agreed on, because then it puts doubts in the people that follow us and buy tickets. Because I had a lot of angry people that follow me that called me and said, I bought $100 VIP tickets and you are pulling out, and I was coming to see you. So there's also a responsibility to the people that follow us and that trust that when we say we are doing something, we are doing it, and they put an investment towards that. So that was the case in terms of my commitment towards that.
All right.
So it was contractual.
It was contractual. Thank you for the
Yes.
clarification.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, I want to understand, I know I touched on this briefly, but now I just want to understand from you as an artist that when you do these gospel shows, what is the aim? Is it to glorify God, or is it just a show, just to make money? You know, pane vatinoto wisairi kuna mwari kana ndesho ngoti, oh well, you know, let me just go sing.
Let me be honest with you. I have done over 15 shows that I've planned myself. I've never made a profit in any of them.
Okay.
So if I was doing it to make money, it would have been a business that I would have thrown out the window a long time ago. And I will tell you this. Go ask Michael. He did an event this weekend.
Yeah.
If you look at the investment that was put in and what people pay when they come to see the event, no one in the gospel sector makes a profit out of those events.
Okay.
We do it because it's our calling. We put tickets there because we want to subsidize the hit that comes on me.
Okay.
But it's a difficult decision that every time I want to plan a show, I have to go and speak to my wife and say, you know what, let's just do this. Because I know I'm taking away, and I've had this conversation with Janet before. She's like, you know, I've taken some money that I could have gone to even deposit a stand. But because this is my calling and this is what God called me to do, I have to keep doing it. Even when I say I'll never do another event again, the following year I'm putting out posters, I'm doing another event because it's my calling, and I feel closer to God, and I feel I've done my part of what God called me to do on this earth when I do those events. So a lot of people, like I said, assumption is the lowest form of knowledge, and we do lazy arguments a lot.
We're good at that.
Yeah, we are good at that. We just assume, I think they make money.
And when we look at you, we're like, oh my goodness, these guys have money.
Yeah, no, we have. Yeah. But it's not from those shows. Yeah, like I always say this to people. If I'm doing an event in 7 Arts, 7 Arts costs 3,000 empty. It costs me another 5,000 to put sound and stage. Already I'm on 8,000. It costs me another 4,000 for me to pay the band and technical team that's coming. If I do a $10 ticket in a 700-seater venue, I can only make 7,000. So already I am short $1,000.
Whoa. And how much do you pay the BVs? Because sometimes I feel like they're gonna win.
Exactly. So
That
you
I
see,
could come and
that was
trade
just
you.
a simple math so that people understand that when we do these events, we are not doing them to make money. And a lot of people complain. But if you've done one event, I get heartbroken when I see people saying things about Maverick, because I know the investment, the billboards, everything that has already been put out the cost and the hit that's making on their work that they're doing.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
Now, going back to the whole Maverick City saga and all, do you think now as artists, those who have pulled out, in your opinion, is it a matter of saving God's face, if I'm to say that, or just a matter of personal saving?
Wow. There's one thing that my father used to say. Bishop used to say, "Kuti, you can't defend God. God defends himself. You know, God will defend himself. We can't defend. Even if we try, we'll always fail. We'll always fall short. You know, so when it comes to these matters, we shouldn't be thinking about defending God. I don't even think it's about defending God. You know, like I said earlier on, it's more so a matter of protecting your own conscience, your own convictions. You know, because even from a pastoral standpoint, I can't tell you don't go, neither can I tell you go. Yeah. I can, however, advise you. I can give you things to think about, things to consider as you go, so that when you do go, or if you decide not to go, it's on you completely.
Please give us those things to think
know.
about and consider.
Okay, so first of all, we consider, is this beneficial to you as an individual? Is going there beneficial? How does it make you feel that you've gone there? Does it bring you closer to God, or does it make you feel like you have sinned? Yes. You know, it's simple things like that. You know, so before you even talk about the people, where they stand, what they do, no, just consider where you stand. You know, because if you read through 1 Corinthians 7 or 8, there were certain people who felt that some Christians were sinning because they were eating food that was sacrificed to idols.
I was about to go there.
But then again, it's like, these idols are nothing. They're really things that are, they are dead statues. You know what I'm saying? So Paul then brought the argument that as a matter of conscience, if it causes somebody else to fall, if as a leader, being seen in a place like that might cause the people that you are called to lead to stumble, then you might just need to consider a few things. You know what I'm saying? Because there's more to this than just what you feel or what you want. You have people that you're called to, you know. So these are the kind of things that I like to get people to understand first before making any kind of decision. And in this particular case, I think it's still the same.
Still the same.
Yeah.
And so we cannot defend God.
No. And I think he's right. Apostle Paul talks about if you don't mind eating food offered to idols, but you are in the presence of people that feel it defiles you, then don't do it in their face. Yeah. So it's also to do with when you're a leader, like he said, as musicians, we wield a lot of power. I have 175,000 people following me on Facebook. Wow. So I'm also responsible to those people, and my decision might also cause them to sin. So I also have to make that decision. And for some of those musicians, maybe that's what they considered, to say it might not be a bad thing to go, but to some people, it will offend them and cause them to sin. So maybe I want to hold back. So it's more on a decision that you make between you and God. Yeah. It's more conscience. Do I get fulfilled doing this? Do I get closer to God? When I go and worship on that platform, am I worshiping him in spirit or in truth? But I'm not really there. And problem with church is we put, sometimes we are hypocrites. Yeah. We pretend to like things that we don't like. We pretend sometimes to agree with things that we don't agree with. And that's why sometimes I like Americans. They are very blunt. Yeah. They will just tell you, I don't like this, and I'm not for this. Now it's your decision to decide what you want to do with that information. So I applaud the people that said we don't like this when it came to Maverick. What I'm a bit wary of is outright calling people evil, because we wrestle not against flesh and blood. So in the Old Testament, people were called evil. But in the New Testament, Jesus did not say you. He said, get behind me, Satan, because he spoke to the spirit behind. So the problem that I have sometimes is, sometimes people, they stumble. In their stumbling, we label them. And then we make them those offended believers that then work against the church. Because once they are now offended, they speak more against us than if we had embraced them to say, you know what, I don't think when you said the lion and the lamb will bow down to the goat, that was something good.
Yeah.
I think we need to come back and correct that so that next time when we go on these platforms, because there's nothing wrong for Christians to be on platforms like BET, because those are called evangelistic platforms. When I was younger, I was part of the Salvation Army Church. Would go kuma shops, the whole team, stand in front of a bar and start playing music and preaching. The reason we did that is we knew that if we keep preaching in our church and not outside, we are fishing in a fish pond. So sometimes those platforms, when we get an opportunity to get there, let's not be bickering and fighting ourselves. Let's be able to correct each other in love, so that the next time we have an opportunity to go on those platforms, we represent Christ well, instead of calling each other evil and all of this. And the non-believers looking at us like, these stupid Christians. I think next time we should not include them. They just bring more trouble than they are worth. Yeah, because
I think I should give you a pulpit, because now you're in.
Can I go deeper?
And it's unfortunate that we've run out of time, but Dr. Caleb, just your concluding words as we conclude this discussion that we would have loved to have probably for the whole day. But, just your words to the people of Zimbabwe watching regarding this whole Maverick City tour.
I want to start by saying that we're called to a kingdom. We are called to serve the kingdom of God. And there are certain spaces that our giftings will take us. And we have the task and the responsibility to represent Jesus Christ well wherever we go. So we must mature ourselves to a place where we are not shaken by the places we go to, but we actually shake the places we go to. I'll give an illustration of a thermometer and a thermostat. A thermostat determines the temperature of a place. A thermometer moves according to the temperature of the place. So us as Christians must actually grow to such a way that we become thermostats ourselves. We determine the atmosphere of a place, as opposed to be tossed and turned according to what's already in a space. Like he was talking about this guys being at BET. Sure, those are award shows that are watched by so many people, and you don't know what happens after that. So people probably heard Chandler Moore singing. Do you know how many people then went after that to go and look for his social media pages and then stumbled upon songs which led them to Christ? You don't know that. So there are so many things that happen behind the scenes, right? There are so many things that happen behind the scenes that otherwise aid the growth of the kingdom. So we should be more kingdom-minded. If truly we are Christian, we should be willing to take up the responsibility to help each other grow, not to throw each other under the bus, but to help each other grow.
Grow. Gentlemen, I must thank you so much for having joined us on Inside Out.
Thank you so much for having us.
And thank you for having joined us on Inside Out. Today we're looking at the whole Maverick City Kingdom World Tour that has been dubbed with a little bit of controversy. So the question is, are you going? Are you not going? But then what we heard here today is the decision is yours. Ask yourself a few questions. Is it beneficial to you? What are you getting from it? What is your conscience saying? Are you going there for the goodness of the Lord? Or just ask yourself questions. Hey, as an individual, you know what to ask yourself. And at the end of the day, you are the only person who can determine whether it's good for you to go or not, and depending on your beliefs. Until we meet again, hopefully next week on Inside Out. Pleasant viewing.